Glad to have everybody today and those who are with us by Zoom. Speaking of Bede, he is our main source because I'm not sure that I would have much to say today were it not for Bede. The sources without Bede are almost non-existent. So we have to sort of do a lot of figuring while we treat Bede's information like he would appreciate with a kind of critical eye, because sometimes he will tell tales that seem somewhat improbable. However, we understand, of course, we live in a very different time, and history is, shall we say, told in a very different way and with a different attitude. But that said, we can still get it in paperback, and it could be in your home on Amazon by tomorrow. So we understand the significance. Now, that said, let's recall, shall we, that the mission was led by St. Augustine. St. Augustine was a Benedictine, and he and other monks went to what we know as England as missionaries under some protection, the Pope, no beneficiate he, but Saint Gregory the First, aka Gregory the Great. He had sent various communications sort of to the bishops of Gaul saying, keep an eye out for him, that kind of thing. Still, it was a very treacherous trip. And again, and we have to excuse these kind of hokey drawings, but the idea being that he would be welcomed because the pagan king was married to a Catholic wife, and special circumstances, of course, that she would be allowed to pursue her worship in a church that had apparently been vacant near what is Canterbury Cathedral, and I have a photograph for you. That particular church, which had been, of course, Celtic, I guess you would say, had been obviously inoperable for a long time because these were Anglo-Saxon times. However, according to Bede, it was available, and I won't even get into issues of restoration and that kind of thing. How would the queen go along, and would she bring out the catechism for the husband and make him feel uncomfortable in his faith tradition? I'm not sure about that. We'll let all that go and just note that there's dear old Ethelbert, and there's the queen, and you can take it that regardless of what he felt, he had to deal with her in the evenings. And so we understand what that could have been like. I'm sure it was pleasant, harmonious. Marriage is a beautiful institution, I'm sure, but we still understand there were differences. While he seemed to be successful in many respects, he was a tactless, dogmatic fellow, and I don't think he got a lot of approval. You know, when they say about how to win friends and influence people, I don't think he did that. He didn't stand up when the Celtic leaders came in. Again, you can take it for what it's worth when you go to Bede and say, but you can imagine if Frank came in I would stand up and say your wonderfulness, your beat, you're great, you're fabulous. But that's not what happened. And the Celts took great umbrage at this. And it's like, you people are a little sensitive here, but Celts being Celts, and it was not good. So they sort of, oh, I'll do something. I'm going to use blew him off. I mean, that's rude, but you get the idea that sometimes he should have stood up later and said, gee, I'm sorry. It was great to see you all. But it's a little sensitivity. So all of that is to say it didn't seem to have affected his career, becoming archbishop. So if you go back to school, you want more degrees in history, you can say, this is not the most important St. Augustine, but he's number 2. And it's not bad to be number 2, but he is the first Archbishop of Canterbury. But you could use that on Trivial Pursuit or maybe Jeopardy. I don't know. But basically, that's his claim to fame. As far as that goes, it does not mean that his work as the first great missionary was in vain, because I'm sure people converted. But when Ethelbert died, guess what happened? Well, somebody said, let's bring out the idols again. You thought, what? I thought those had been destroyed. Didn't we take all those out to the salvage, or, chop them up or something, But now they were restored because folks were missing it. Maybe a golden calf or two. I don't know. But luckily, the daughter of Ethelbert was arraigned. And Ethelbert had converted, I'm sure, thanks to the wife, I'm not going to say nag, I'm just going to say persuading, to convert. And he did. And their daughter, aka Ethelberga, not daughter of Ethelbert, but married Edwin. And this is highly important. And again, notice our map: Northumbria, Beauty, Hadrian's Wall, Sheep, all the things we could say about Northumbria, York, all of that made it very, very important in this period. And by that time, the king was Edwin, pagan. So the marriage, by this time, Ethelbert was dead, and temporarily, I guess his son had control, because these kingdoms did not have a firm dynastic principle. So it's like whoever's the strongest, so he didn't lay it. But he gave his sister away to the king of Northumbria, and the importance was the king of Northumbria was actually pagan. I won't say hardcore pagan, because he was willing to listen, willing to consider other ideas. So I guess we would call him open-minded. But I'm figuring he hadn't had comparative religions, or it wasn't anything like, well, tell me some of your ideas, or what services do you have, and what kind of programs. I don't think it was any of that. It was just like, well, I'd love to have a relationship with the Kingdom of Kent, so bring her on with all this weird religion, and we'll see how it goes. But basically, Edwin was involved. Now, this is Bede, and I'm sorry I had to quote it. I just couldn't tell it in any way that would be as good. Whereupon the virgin was promised and sent to Edwin, pursuant to what had been agreed on. But going with her was Paulinus. Some of you will remember Clark Kent and Superman. Do you remember when they would say at the beginning of the show, disguised as a mild-mannered reporter for the Planet? Yeah. And that's our Paulinus in Anglo-Saxon, disguised as a mild-mannered priest. He had more purpose than that, and says that right here. Ordained bishop to go with her, celebrating the holy mysteries. And of course, you know that means the sacraments. And you say, oh, how nice to make her feel safe so she can't be corrupted by the company of the pagans. You say, oh, yeah, I mean, hanging out with them can be hazardous to your health, you know? It's like, I mean, stand away. You know, it's like you get off so you won't get bitten. Yeah, I mean, it's that whole thing. But his mind was wholly bent. This is what always I love. Wholly bent upon reducing the nation to which he had been sent. But we know pagans are going down. Yeah. But they are going to realize to which he was sent. And listen, he's quoting Paul now, to espouse her to one husband that he might present her as a chaste virgin. So again, all of this has to do with Bede's efforts to present the church and Christ. And again, seeing Paulinus as an agent of this. I just thought it was interesting because there will be all of these events, I feel like, are godly ordained, and working out that, in this case, in the Anglo-Saxons. And never forget, again, the grandfather could have been a mean old warrior, beat up folks and cut them. But now here we have the Benedictine historian telling the tale of how this becomes a Christian nation. So, after that, we hear about Edwin, and it will tell in the Bedean tradition how he will see the truth. Now, he doesn't just jump into it. He goes to a lot of question and answer sessions, and I guess discussion groups, that kind of thing. And of course, there'll be a lot of skepticism. Well, let's just see if this works out. How about see if I win this battle? See if my daughter survives, that kind of thing, like testing. If I were interested in your religion, you think you could pray up a victory here? And of course, as you can imagine, God freed Satan's zip. And that goes on. And what you will have basically is Paulinus can say, wow, this is amazing. I still need to check with my counselor, because I don't want to make any rash decision. And it's really kind of interesting to me when you go to those counselors, then I'm thinking, how do we know this? It's always like, I used to ask students, I said, you think they had a tape recorder? How do we know? A stenographer, Greg Shorthand, or all of that. And the idea is, I think, great creativity. But he must have said something on this order. And the idea is, of course, the king sit around people, probably knock some back. I mean, this is, people drink and adult beverages. And probably on the king's money too. Yeah. Even though they should be saving. But anyway, it's like, which is an interesting idea, the present life of man, O king, seems to me in comparison of that time, which is unknown to us, like the sparrow. This sounds like something you have days of our lives. It's like we don't know what came before, we don't know what comes after. And said, in essence, so this life of man appears for a short time. We are utterly ignorant. So if this doctrine contains something more certain, it seems justly to be followed. And this seems to me again like not so much a matter of following the gospel so much as like it's as good as any of them. And if this bunch of teachers think it's good and you think it's fine, let's go for it. And then everybody says hip hip hooray, probably take another drink. Yeah, not sipping either. I mean, belting it like free drinks, something of that sort. And people of this sort. Yeah. So all of that is very interesting indeed. And the idea is, I don't think mass conversion, but now Edwin, and again, Edwin had to listen to Ethelberger every night. Remember that, always. Because Ethelberger is, of course, she's hitting that mass. Yeah. Because she had her entourage with her. I mean, a Catholic entourage when she came north up to heathen land. So, yeah, don't you worry about that. So, how did Edwin turn out? Not so well. He was a nice person. I'm sure he was nice. That's what Bede tells us. But his hold on the Northumbrian throne was a brief one. Killed in battle, but he was already converted. So, safe on that respect. So, you know what that means. She's out of power, Ethelberga. So back to Kent she goes. And this regicide, shall I call the new king, takes over. Paulinus, now Archbishop of York, and the first, in case you keep up with first archbishops of York or first archbishops of Canterbury, now you know. And gosh, I think he deserves it, turning Edwin, because I bet you they had a lot of those sessions. And I mean, it's not like, oh, shoot, I'm just tired of hearing about it. Can we have another session? On and on and on. But it was worth it. Bring them to the truth. But all of that was in vain. So you say, more golden calves? Yeah, pull them out. They might have had them hidden away, just waiting for the change. I mean, there's that church I wanted you all to see. And some of you have seen it, I'm sure, on trips. The idea is, I always think important that, unlike what I thought when I was 18, these conversions are not like sweeping and it's sort of like in the movies, everybody is in the news. Yeah, we're on board. We're all that, got a cross on every house, that kind of thing. I'm thinking a lot of people might have had some secret idols. Yeah. And remember, who's going to enforce it? Are you going around and saying, I don't want to catch you with any golden calves, or we're going to bring you in? They don't, I mean, the idea of enforcing a religion that way is pretty improbable, shall we say. But whereas the following by a king would seem that, at least from the top people, and who knows, maybe the fact that positions like bishops and would be appealing, you have more kids than you have land or opportunities or fighting, so you'd like to send some to be a bishop or maybe an abbot. I mean, you say, what about if they're not religious? Well, we'll work on that. They'll learn to accept it. Maybe they're good administrators and they can work on the religious part on the part-time, but they're good in the other, and they did well in Latin. That's a very important constituency. Then, of course, we have the issue of, well, his name was Oz. And then he had the problem because it was what I guess we would call today a mixed marriage. He was of the Celtic tradition, and his wife was Catholic. You say, well, isn't that beautiful? That's very ecumenical. It's not as good as you might think, because then we have that period of Ash Wednesday and Lent. And then our Roman Catholics are going to say, we're fasting. And our Celt, it's a different date of Lent, is going to say, we're eating. Yeah. And marriage, again, I want to emphasize, is a beautiful institution. But people can disagree. But sometimes not disagree harmoniously. The issue is, according to Bede, that the king and his wife were on different Lenten cycles. I know. And you say, even in the happiest of homes, there could be a lack of bliss. If you don't have the same Easter, or you're knocking down all this food and I'm fasting. I mean, I gather that would create disharmony. So Bede has it that he called them all together at a place, and here it is, called Whitby. This is an interesting situation. Some of you have probably seen that series. I bet you have. Vera. Oh, yeah. Oh, you like it? I love it today. I think it's last season. But I'm not here to get into television. It's the idea. There's a lot of murder up there, I'm okay, and not good ones. They're very bad. But all of that area, and it is beautiful, and it's filmed. Oh gosh! But I think about this, my sick, twisted mind. I think about this when I watch Vera sessions and wonder how many of those people think about the Synod of Whitby. And I mean, you scholars do, I know, but we need to reach out to the people and make sure they know, share in your knowledge. Seriously, this Whitby was actually chaired, oh dear, by a cousin of the king. She's known as St. Hilda. And this was actually, I guess you'd say I haven't heard of this before since, but I find it fascinating. I mean, if you went to Monastery Digest, I guess. I mean, there aren't any like this today, as far as I know. I can't imagine it was co-ed now, but this was called a double monastery, and they didn't last. But during a short period, you could have a head of the monastery, an abbess, with both men and women, separate. No, we're not hanging out, no. But it's all very hard to imagine because a man would still have to come in to the female section as the priest. So there you are. But in any event, this St. Hilda was she was Celtic. So she was honest and she wasn't pretending. She said, but I want y'all to feel free to come to my house and let's talk about it. And this is King Oswey. And you have Celtic clergy there with the Roman clergy, and Oswey, I guess, worried about his wife and their Lenten, their future Lents, was looking for a way that they could get it together and have one Easter. So the story goes. So they're all there. And again, this is not like y'all come, everybody have a different opinion. I'm thinking that while the king was there and some of his principal advisors, but I'm not thinking they would, if you were a layperson, you would necessarily have a lot of opinions because, as you know, a lot of it has to do with astronomy and all of the traditions therein. There she is. So this goes on several pages of Bede. Yes, because, and again, St. Hilda was there. It'd be interesting to know if she spoke. Because, I mean, she was probably the only woman there. It's kind of odd to think about. But all of this had to do with the Celtic bishop, and they would debate, and I guess you'd say it's kind of polite, but you're thinking they don't really like each other. You know, probably they shook hands or maybe exchanged kisses and like, but you think, I wonder if they really loved each other. You say, maybe not. I mean, because they want to win the debate. They want the king to say, you got it right. And of course, he was probably a little prejudiced towards the Celts. You're my people. I love you very much. I love you, St. Columba. I mean, we got a lot of people from our tradition. But then we pull out the Peterman on the Roman side. According to Bede, again, this is where it came down. Oswey, I guess, had read scripture or somebody told him about it or something about the Petrine doctrine and all the rest of it. But the idea is that somehow he understood the significance of Simon Peter. So the idea was, a lot was said about St. Columba, you know, because the Celts got very excited when you bring up the big C, and because that's the way we do it in Kelland. I mean, we love St. Columba. And it came up to a question of authority. So the Celts were just going on and on. Gosh, you know what that St. Columba said, you know, and sometimes you get a little tired of that. If you're a non-Celt, I bet you those Romans They were going like, yeah, maybe you would like to hear something said by Saint Peter. Yeah. And you're thinking like, is that going to work? It did for Osway. Osway said, my friends from the Celtic tradition, do you have anybody of the level of Peter? And they're caucusing and they're going like, no. I mean, Columba was pretty good, but not on the P level. It's over. We've had a nice time. It's been great. But seriously, the issue, according to Bede, was the authority of St. Peter, gatekeeper. And according to Bede, the king said, well, I would rather follow the Roman tradition because of the authority of St. Peter. Again, I'm not sure that this was a case of biblical exegesis so much as it's they put on a better argument. So I'm not going to face St. Columba. I mean, I love him. He's great, give him his due, but he's no Peter, that kind of thing. I mean, it hurts. And believe you me, you've heard of people who are good losers. I think that is so nice. You're sort of like, oh, shucks, but give me a big one. No, most of those Celts were irritated, cross. And they're not saying, oh, peace be with you. We love you very much. Where can we get the next catechism? We want to go to classes and have some sharing experiences. Kumbaya. Now, remember when children pal? Have you ever seen that? Yeah. I'm sure not yours. But if you're aware, sometimes they can be a little rude, ugly, those lips stick out. And I think that was a good comparison with the Celts because most of them just left and didn't hang out and say, we want to be with you. It's always like you always think, now we have the right way and done. Well, that's because we have to do these stories in an hour or something. So, but we know that isn't the way it happens. It is a very gradual process of transition with the Celts going like, gosh, I hate it, but I guess we lost. And the old gray mayors think what's used to be all of the rest of it, understanding that those traditions have faded, not forgotten, just faded, and we still love St. Columba's. I mean, go to Iona and check it out. And I guess there is some, shall we call it, church revisionism, where people will say, well, if he had known that, he would have been one of us. The only reason he had passed on, but we're all together. That's what's important. So all of this pointed out, and St. Hilda goes on at Whitby, and her moment in history has been reached. And this is the famous, and I love it, and see that, and if that Columba of yours, and I may say ours, if he was Christ's servant. I mean, who do you think he's serving? Satan? I mean, it's like, that was a little ugly. Yeah, the Catholic spokesman. Yeah. But it's true. And then you see where he says, is it true, Coleman, that those words, it is true, O king. Poor Coleman. I mean, it's Coleman is like, Stephen Douglas, the Lincoln Douglas debate, the also ran. I mean, it hurts sometimes, doesn't it? Because that's why you'll be remembered when you think about your ID, if you had that on the test. You would think he lost in the great debate about whether we're going Celtic or we're going Catholic. So there he was. Theodore of Tarsus. Now that's a name that you'll want to know. You say Tarsus? Yes, it's that Tarsus. But I always like to tell students, it's not, don't go there thinking you'll find Tarsus now. Because people called Turks came. So it had a name change. But there is still that tradition of Tarsus, as in Paul, and understanding that at the time, as late as the Anglo-Saxons, it was still a great center of Christian faith. Because you've got to remember, I mean, we're talking 7th century, because the Turks were not there, and certainly the Islamic faith was just developing. So all of this, however, what's interesting to me is Orthodox versus Catholic. So somehow this fellow, Saint Theodore, as he is known, made it out of Tarsus. And boy, he was come from the Greek tradition, had to take Latin, maybe 101, 102, advanced. He was what we call a polyglot. He had to have many languages because he went on over to Italy. And you think, what's he doing over there? Well, getting in church work. You can imagine. I don't think he was there for his health. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to do that. I would stay in Tarsus. But he got over to Italy, got involved, and became a figure. And then late in life, it's kind of like Winston Churchill becoming prime minister, I think at 65. He became Archbishop of Canterbury in his 60s. And Theodore of Tarsus he had paid his dues. But I'm thinking, like, now we got to have a crash course in Anglo-Saxon 101. How do you do that? Learning the culture and take that trip. Most of us don't like to travel unless it's first class. Maybe having adult beverages, free extra drinks, first class. But that's what he did, and he was sent by the Pope of that day. And you'll notice his Eastern style. So you say he was definitely not like, wow, I've heard a lot about you, Anglo-Saxons. It's really nice to be over here. I think they require some cultural adaptation, don't you think? I mean, he was not part of any kind of tradition that would have made him aware of that, but he was definitely a golden ager, as we say now. And he becomes a major figure in Anglo-Saxon Christian history. And look how long he lasted. God, he took some vitamins, probably ate a lot of beets, all that. Yeah. See, so we know now that living right leads to a long, long life, and he did. And he was considered head of the church. Now, again, you say, why not St. Augustine? Well, he was the first Archbishop of Canterbury, but I don't think he had the kind of authority or the kind of say so. Not that, it's all a neat package, far from it. But he is recognized as the first that other bishops, if you remember from, all bishops are equal, but some are more equal than others. Right. And I think in that case, he's able to pull rank. You around Canterbury? I don't think so. So they'll go, yes, sir. So a little humility, a little ring kissing. So that's our Theodore Tarsus. His reign, if you want to call it that, his period of rule, maybe reign sounds too monarchical, but dividing England into dioceses, encouraging Benedictine monastic efforts. And we think of the monasteries today as being very important in terms of scholarship. Because, this has definitely been a Bedean kind of day, hasn't it? S.N.B. So he is a clear example. You think, but I thought a monastery was to pray and to help poor folks and all that. Yeah, that's nice too. But you have your super bright people. So they get a special dispensation to go to the library and work. So, and you know who you are. So you have to no KP duty and none of that. No work. Your work will be up here. So that would be people like Bede. All of that, and rightly so, is because, of course, people like Theodore Tarsus will emphasize that. And again, you think, who else would have done it? Well, nobody. There's nobody else to do it. And again, that's what eating beets and other things will do for you. 88. Yes. We should all be a St. Theodore of Tarsus to make it that long. And we think about him in terms of what's called, and this is one of those words that drive some people crazy, Renaissance. And you go like, I get together with good friends who do 15th and 16th century, and they will become possessive, resentful. I know, you would think, try not to be ugly, in history meetings, but that's supposed to be a time of love and reaching out. But they claim that Renaissance word. They look at people like me and say, where are your Michelangelos? Where are your Leonardos? And it's like, that hurts. Big wound. But I take it because they resent us using words like Renaissance. They think it belongs to them. I know, Pietro, David, I get it. But we have our stuff too. Okay, and we're a proud people, medieval people. Yeah. And one of the things that is claimed is, but I too think the Northumbrian Renaissance is a bit much. Carolingian Renaissance connected, that's better. But Northumbrian Renaissance has to do with the idea of Theodore and similar people creating amongst groups of monks these centers of education and learning. Now, again, I can't emphasize too much that regular folks are still working I don't think they're too involved. Yeah, would you like to stop by the scriptorium this afternoon and work on a manuscript? I don't know. So I guess in today's, where we'd say elitist activities, but for the purpose of preservation and historical learning. Now, is there any Greek? Oh, no. This is all Latin. Is there going to be any English? I think not. That's what we tell the regular folks, you go get something clean or something like that. They can do it in English, but everything, I mean, we're all equal, all got children and all that, but scholarship is Latin. Okay, so it's not like, well, maybe we do this or that or the other. No. Latin and Latin. Just want to emphasize that. I don't want you to think there's any option or not yet. So all of this really is supported strongly, I think, by Archbishop Theodore. Lord, I got so excited about Bede. How about a little break now? Forgive me.
That's okay.
I thought I was about
You're excited.
Yeah, I am. Bede does that for me. Yes. Get that Bede fever.
All right.
So let me ask Master Frank.
Well, it's 3:20 right now. So why don't we just do 5 minutes today? So 3:25. Let's say 3:26 because we'll round it up a little.
3:26.
3:26.
All right.
Look, you don't know. I don't know if this is like.
Because I'm ready for that Northumbrian Revolution.
I know you are.
It's coming to a class near you, man. Because it started. So you were saying that I thought I'd tell you. Oh, I know. I got a letter from all the fundraisers. So they must be sending out a lot of bulletins to friends of the broken hearts, because this is all about
Building.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't get that one because we're already committed.
right. But I mean, is this a challenge or
Well, the deal
to
is,
the university?
the university is, will put up half the money we're supposed to put together, basically.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, so like, they wanted me to like host a party.
Who is, and the lady, I met her, I think I told you. She,
Well,
she's the fundraiser for the college.
yes,
Scott here.
can't try to think of her name.
Yeah, that's impressive.
He must be a contributor.
You ever husband Bull?
Should we laugh or,
I'll take some moan.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh,
No.
that was bad, yeah, real bad.
But I try not to encourage people,
I make up for it, and it's just, well, today walking to class, that was on the history thing.
King John?
Yeah, your favorite king.
I know.
The one and only.
That'll be another, I can promise you, yeah.
He wasn't
The conclusion of that.
that bad.
Well, the conclusion of this was
Yeah.
Morley studied, he was kind of bad.
He was bad. I mean, how bad was he though? I mean,
But it's in historical revisionism, they go back and forth and maybe a mental problem.
yeah,
He was depressed.
He's depressed. I'm depressed too if I lost France.
And his mother didn't really love him.
No, she didn't.
He was short.
That's another issue.
Yeah.
Maybe when to be taller. People have trouble.
Yeah, they
do. It's amazing, isn't it? I'm like,
Yeah, I wanted to be taller.
nobody wants.
I wanted to be able to sing an octave higher. Okay,
I know, but you were already a star and Scott. I mean, you're everything.
well, I try to be, I don't want to use this word, but I'm a Renaissance man. Okay.
Yes, you are. Yeah, that's, yeah.
I would rather been a polymath, but that's another issue.
No. You're great enough, as you are. But that is, people always do that now, though. I mean, all the books, all the John books,
Yeah.
because no one would say I'm just an awful person, loser. Nope, that's out of fashion.
You know, his brother's been getting rid of a lot of criticism.
Richard,
Yeah.
oh,
He's been getting a lot of criticism.
and don't forget about Jeff.
That's another one.
And young Henry.
Getting a lot of, I was like, how are you king of England? You're never there. Okay, you know?
Well, but he was doing the Lord's work. So he was saving the Holy Land.
Yeah, he was doing that.
All right.
Prison, you know.
Well, and and he made some mistakes, but he had to, a fundraiser. And
Yeah. Yeah, go fund me page.
Go fund me.
Get out of jail free card.
Oh,
Well, not so free.
no, and his mother loved him very
A
much.
lot more than John.
Oh, yeah. That's another
That's gotta
problem.
Yeah, hurt John.
Oh, yeah, with that. Could you imagine? if Always could have got these people on his house.
The wine bar where it's like, the one thing that's the wine is, whatever you say, like, you're
John Blackburn.
Yeah, John.
That's got hurt too.
Like I said, you lost France.
And then but remember Jeffrey and Arthur, John's nephew, he made the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So that's not good. Wouldn't you hate to live with that? That I put on you.
That's bad.
I mean,
Put anybody on.
I mean, yeah. Be able
He's
Very nice.
It's hurtful.
It's hurtful. I gotta call people back.
Do I? Okay.
Okay. Come on back.
No. I would prefer their sun and fresh air to me. So I'm dealing with issues now.
Yeah, you're dealing with issues.
Rejection. Oh, did you see those pictures? Isn't that interesting? From the Warren Hollister, and he's been gone since 1996, so think about it.
Yeah, Warren's been long gone.
Yes, the original author of that book must have come out, what, in the 90s?
Oh, the original one? Oh, yeah.
The first edition, yes. Because Hollister was probably,
First edition.
well, it would have been in the early 90s, probably, or maybe.
Also popularized 66.
Wow.
I was gonna say 90s too late. 71.
70. No, Hollister had a nice estate. Yeah, so I'm thinking
He's not getting books out.
he wasn't living on retirement.
What are they,
checks.
11 now or what?
Yeah, but I mean, they've gone through how many authors? Do
Yeah, I think you've used that same woman.
you remember? No, it's a new one.
Yeah, well, she had someone with her, I thought.
Maryland, something.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my students bought it. So I'll go on now, may I?
Go right ahead.
Yeah, let me wait for them, because they're still engaged in idle palaver.
Well, you know,
Not worldly, maybe they're talking about the Renaissance, 12th century Renaissance.
Or maybe not.
Oh, Judy.
I had a
Please.
professor, that he walked into class. Slammed the door, brought the picture.
Oh, to
That's too thin. Get a good PCAM book. Did that.
Yeah, need a bigger book than that.
Do you think
Oh, heck with that.
if they, if they
Bailed on
escape,
that.
Wants to go.
Greatest,
You know,
Benedict
can't
Arnold,
trust anyone.
Judas.
So,
Well,
Oh,
you can make sure that their grade is,
yeah, they're gonna pay big time. Not that I'm sensitive, but,
no.
oh, here they are. But.
You know, back when I was a sales manager, I would lock the door.
No.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful out there and yet,
We were talking medieval.
oh.
yeah, right. I'm not skeptical. Okay. Back to the Renaissance. Renaissance. Back there. Renaissance. Yeah. I know that you would not want to miss this. And I can't be responsible for hurting you like that. I want you to get all of this. It's the idea of advocacy, and the true meaning of Renaissance, I think, is just to understand, things are falling apart, so we're trying to save what we can. And of course, you say, does that mean everything? Well, everything that's in Latin and everything that's appropriate. I mean, there's some works that would have been in our language rated X. Well, maybe not X, but R, because they're just not fitting. Do you imagine being monks and making copies of Ovid's Book of Love? I don't think that would go over. So, we take out some and say, put that in special collections or something. It's under lock and key. But major works, if you had copies, perhaps there were certain works of the philosophers, Seneca, Roman philosophers, that would have been acceptable. You say, Seneca, why can't we just go straight to Plato and Aristotle? Greek, not done here. Again, it's all about the Latin.
Wasn't Archbishop Theodore Greek?
Yes, but I'm saying that when you spread it out into the monasteries,
He seems like he'd be more willing to.
he would have, and he had been a Greek scholar himself, if you want to, but it's like, you think of your environment, the good alpha, omega, wouldn't you think they'd all want to, but Greek's right tough, isn't it? I mean, it's not like many of us had Latin in school and survived, but I think Greek's a lot harder. If you know people who had seminary, I think they have to take it. I mean, it's not an easy language. So here he is, the man himself. You can call him Vinny.
Yes.
The Venerable Bede. And of course, if you want to get a copy of this work, they are available in used copies. And different editions.
A lot of editions.
Oh, you look it up on Wikipedia if you doubt me. It's a wonderful thing. Every home should have one. But here is what a lot of people don't realize, popularizing the idea that when we grew up, I mean, it was commonplace, BC and AD. Now they have the Common Era and other ways of dealing with it. But in his day, my day for that matter, it was the BC, and he popularized. as I was told by a professor of mine, he did not create it. And it's like I'm trembling with shame because I had said that. It was Dionysius Exiguus. You don't have to know that. It won't be on the test. I know. But if you want more information, you can get it here for no extra charge. Because it's just interesting to me that here he is in a monastery and he finds out about this sort of thing. Because we know that that system is off by some years. But it was a very, very important one. He also was an influence, and I'm not saying this because I want to get into this whole business of how did Catholicism develop in the direction of purgatory and how that became so important. However, Bede's writings clearly indicated in the story he tells of a man, it's called the Miracle of Cunningham, a man who supposedly comes back from the dead and scares his family to death. And he comes back and he says, I was sent back to tell living people what they need to do in order to avoid being damned. And let me tell you what I saw, and saw some people cold, some hot, and that kind of thing. From that, some people assert, now this is way back in Bede's time, not Dante. That was long after that, many centuries later. But that basically this gives the idea of a temporary place of punishment depending on how serious the problem is. But as I always say, someday purgatory will be shut down, because that is the idea, because they always say, well, you have to go to purgatory. So it's like always, and this may go back to Pope Gregory the First, because always people felt like they couldn't meet the standard for heaven. So that was the idea. The faithful, the believers would be saved. And Bede makes a big point of this. And the Miracle of Cunningham, you say, why is that in a history book? Well, again, I told you at the onset that we have to accept Bede. And he loved hairy dog stories, and many historians do. I mean, Herodotus, the great Herodotus, the father of history, full of tales and that you pick up hither and thither. So Bede has his share of anecdotes like the one of Cunningham. And of course, as you can imagine, he'd go back to his job. He probably gave out money to his wife and children and then gave the rest to the poor. And then he became a monk and lived out his days that way. Because, of course, it's great to be married and be fruitful and all that. But that's number two. Number one, monk. Okay. Monk and nun. So that is there. Now, other members of this Northumbrian Renaissance, Saint Boniface, not Boniface VIII,
Not the eighth.
because this fella is not in hell. No burning here. He is a martyr. You can call him Winfrith, but the Pope called him Saint Boniface, so I'll go by his Roman name. Get it? Roman. So, Saint Boniface. Saint Boniface was a scholar, and I might say a master diplomat, great Christian, and a diplomat in the sense that not bad for an Anglo-Saxon monk. He ended up going to the continent. dealing with the Franks, Rome, the church. I mean, he was part of that, but he was a major player and also a missionary. All of that, we have letters that he wrote and were written to him. He's a major figure in this period. And for those of you who had medieval, you remember Charlemagne, Charlemagne's father. He's that connection. That connection because they want the church's approval. Because there was another family ruling not very well. It's interesting to think that it was Boniface who was sort of bringing the Pope and this Carolingian family together, but it's true. And I've always felt like he was a very, very busy man because you think with all the praying and the doing good and the writing and all that, how does he have time to get involved in all these, shall we say, diplomatic activities? I don't know. I mean, he was highly scheduled, I can tell you that, because he was also working on these people. And you may know some, they're called Frisians. You may call them Dutch. We love tulips, wooden shoes. Yes, everybody loves the Dutch. But like Danes, they had ancestors. Sometimes the ancestors be a little rough around the edges. And the Frisians are not like, we would love to hear about your faith. What is your faith tradition like? It's not like that at all. It's kind of like I tell the students, it's like you ever close your apartment door when somebody comes and says they're from some religious group and you say, no, I'm kind of busy right now. It's like that's kind of the way the Frisians were when St. Boniface and these Benedictines. Again, now think of the area, Holland, Belgium, right around in that particular area. And again, I don't want to take anything away from our vision of the joy and good hearts of the Dutch people. I mean, it's no way in an unkind way, but just understand the Frisians were not open to evangelism, okay? So, St. Boniface made a boo-boo.
Chop down a tree.
He did. We love trees. That's why we have Arbor Day. But we don't worship. But some of us have Frisian ancestors, and they did. They loved trees too much. I don't think we could do that now. Go to the Arboretum, if you don't believe me.
Get
But
arrested.
the idea is that he actually chopped one down. And he paid for it, as you can see there, at St. Boniface. Because, I mean, it's not like they haven't looked at his pamphlets or literature or anything. I mean, it's not like, hostility. It's not like, I really wish you would do this in our forest. But yeah, that is that according to martyrology, the stories of the martyrs and saints, he did that, but he had a wonderful career, and he is also part of this so-called Renaissance. And let's not forget how when he was part of this, imagine Anglo-Saxons, and you get invited to be part of Charlemagne's court. I know we want to be humble. I've got a breast, I'll beat it. I'm ready to be in monastic style, but still, that would be exciting. You'll get a special invitation from Charlemagne. please come to my court. I would like for you to kind of head up some of our intellectual activities. I'll call him the Henry Kissinger of his day. You know, it's like Harvard. I mean, don't you wish you could still grade blue books and all that? Maybe not, because he was very busy, and Alcuin becomes very, very important. Scholar, leader, it's he whose history sort of explains how Charlemagne got the title. You know as well as I do. And we don't want to, this won't be on the phone. The date of Charlemagne's coronation.
Christmas Day.
That is wonderful. Yes. Plus 10, right? Yeah. 800. And the idea was, of course, was it all just a circumstance? Nay, says Alcuin. It was, of course, God's providence and a realization that we need an emperor. And this noble and venerable, how many more words can I use? Frank, AKA Charlemagne, was called by divine providence to become the emperor. And the Pope darn well knew it. Not everybody agrees with that interpretation, but if you're on the payroll, you know what to say. In any event, I think it's interesting that Charlemagne had a very, I guess, in our terms, international court. And Alcuin, the Anglo-Saxon monk, should we say English now? Maybe we're not quite ready, but let's just be aware that these Benedictines are capable of spreading out, even though they sort of got their bearings. Because, you know, many of them went in as what we call oblates, children who are, I guess their parents can't handle them. We got too many. So they say, well, these children are a wonderful gift for God, so let's give God a gift. So they become, you know, monks and nuns, and these are individuals then who sometimes become the most devoted monks and nuns. People are given that way. In any event, this squad, shall we say, of God's servants, voluntarily or involuntarily, then become great agents. And so it is with individuals like Bede or Alcuin and so many others who are part of this Northumbrian Renaissance. And Northumbria, and we all love it, I mean, all of the sights and sounds, a circle, a lake district. I mean, it's not, Delta will have flights that you can take up there now, I bet. Would you go to what airport? Manchester, Birmingham, one of those. It's a wonderful area, but all of that is to say that it's a beautiful sight. But I'm not so sure that it was then what it is today. And it was a sparsely populated, poor area, but it became a major center of Anglo-Saxon civilization because of these Benedictine monasteries, because they became great sites of civilization in the scriptorium. I mean, we love people who like to work and keep the place clean and do all that. But you brainy types, you need your time to work on your scholarship. maybe write something in yellow and black, like Cliff Notes. Whatever it is that you're into, you do it. And all of these people then become very important sources. So I like to leave on a great note and a thanks to the scholarship. And then remind you that I have never met anyone who didn't love Danes. I love Danes. I love Copenhagen. That was one of my favorites. You like them? Wonderful site. Delta had service there. So, what could be wrong with that? Same thing with Frisians. They were kind of rough back then. And next week, we're going to talk about some mean Danes and Danes who don't appreciate getting solicited for scripture reading. And we'll talk about that then. Thank y'all.